Hey, there goes one of those petticoat soldiers now.
Yeah. My sister wants to join the wax. What do you think of that?
Huh. She's crazy. What the devil's a woman want to be a soldier for?
Just a waste of time. This is a man's war. What sort of jobs can they do?
What sort of jobs can we do? Take a look, mister. X-ray technicians, inspectors of Army meat, teachers schooling our soldiers, wax or classification experts, assignment interviewers.
So this is a man's war, is it? Wax are at work on every sort of Army vehicle, doing every sort of motor transport job, testing walkie-talkies, testing radio tubes. Those are just a few of the jobs they do. There are 239 more. Hey, you two armchair generals on the porch, here's something more for you to think about. Listen.
General Eisenhower said, in many jobs, wax do the work of two men. The Army needs and can use all it can get.
And listen to the women of the United Nations. They, too, have some ideas on the subject. The English with their calm courage, the stalwart women of heroic Russia, the Canadian and Australian women, the women of China with their undying fortitude, and tens of thousands of American wax. What are their ideas on the subject? Listen.
We shall live up to the legends of our fighting men.
Where did these thousands come from? Where will the United States Army get thousands more? Thousands to back up manpower for battle abroad. Who are the women who will help retain the needed manpower for the production battle at home? Who are the women who will help fight our country's war? It's Mary Jones, Jane Doe. It's the idle housewife and the girl next door. Oh, yes, it's your war, too, Miss and Mrs. America.
Here at Fort Oglethorpe in Georgia, one of the most beautiful Army posts in the world, we, the newly hatched wax, gather to learn what all the shooting's about. Our kind of shooting. From morning till night, we hustle through a very novel, interesting life. Not just classes and drill and duty, but all kinds of women's sports and recreation. We work hard and play hard. We learn that the Army's privileges as well as its hardships are ours. We get furlough rates on trains, special prices at theaters, special life insurance rates. We know that the rumors about the wax are so much hot air.
All the time. Cotton stockings all the time.
Scratch that one out.
All
Off-duty, rayon, or whatever you can get.
You can't use makeup.
No rouge.
No lipstick.
No nail polish. No rouge.
No lipstick. No nail polish.
No rouge.
No lipstick. No nail polish.
No rouge.
Toss that one in the ash can.
Everybody's hair is alike. The same old hairdo. The same old hairdo. The same
Nonsense. Our hairdress is up to us as long as it's neat, smart, and off the collar.
All work and no fun. All work and no fun.
Strictly Axis propaganda.
From WAC training centers at Fort Oglethorpe and at Des Moines, WACs go forth to Army posts, camps, specialist schools, air bases, to every part of the United States. Savannah, St. Louis, Newport, Baton Rouge, Seattle, Santa Barbara. To Washington, our nation's capital, come hundreds of WACs, many to be stationed in the famous Pentagon building and attached to the combined chiefs of staff. WACs are entrusted with tasks involving the utmost secrecy. Here, the important work of decoding messages whose information must be carefully guarded and transcribed with perfect accuracy. At Aberdeen Proving Grounds, valuable men have been released for combat duty by WACs, inspecting mammoth tanks, computing ordnance firing tables for the light, accurate American carbines, the carbines that have canceled the effectiveness of many a Nazi and many a Jap. Here, they also check the efficiency of remote control units and make secret ballistic measurements. These are just a few of the important and interesting jobs done by WACS. At air bases here and overseas, women soldiers perform over 25 technical jobs. War jobs now, but civilian careers later on.
We are in the machine shop, in the repair shop. We rig the parachute. We guide our flyers home.
Altitude 5,000 feet, 5000. Request landing instructions.
Mitchell Field Tower to Army 3131. Circle field twice at 3,000 feet.
Let me in, will you? I've got a heavy date tonight.
Keep your chute on, Lieutenant. Field won't be clear for 5 minutes.
Potential American pilots are taught blind flying by our WACS. They are taught to handle night raids over Europe and the Black Pacific, taught to navigate safely through black space, loaded with hidden peril. Thousands of WACs volunteer for overseas duty, eager to serve in the actual theater of operations, the goal toward which they've worked and trained. Wherever the American armies will go, WACs may follow. Women have proven their definite value in England, in North Africa, in Algiers, in New Caledonia, India, and Egypt. Every WAC making the war shorter by a month, a week, a day, a minute. Yes, wherever the American armies will go, WACs may follow. To Berlin and Tokyo, too. Ladies and gentlemen, General Marshall.
The Women's Army Corps is an integral part of the Army of the United States, and its members, who are soldiers in every sense of the word, perform a full military part in this war. There are hundreds of important Army jobs which women can perform as effectively as men. In fact, we find that they can do some of these jobs much better than the men. As more and more American soldiers engage the enemy in combat, women must replace them at overseas bases and at posts in this country. In view of the urgency of the situation, enlistment in the military service should take precedence, in my opinion, over any other responsibility except imperative family obligation.
In 1918, we were on the sidelines.
When the war has been won, the women in the Army will march shoulder to shoulder with the men in the great victory parades that will celebrate the return of peace to the world.
No uniforms, no headlines. Instead, the determination to fight their part of the war and do it well. The work at Aberdeen must be done, and today it is 100-fold more important than ever before. For years, Army Ordnance engineers have maintained a large civilian staff of trained testing experts to help them perform the countless and exacting tests to which must be subjected every single piece of the list of Army Ordnance equipment now growing so rapidly. Together, these Ordnance engineers and their staffs have developed the gunpowder, the cartridges, the shells, the guns, the carriers for those guns, and every kind of tank. The hundreds of weapons with which our troops are fighting today. Like countless other jobs being taken over by women everywhere in the country in order to release the men of their community for active service on the fighting fronts, the jobs at Aberdeen are a far cry from what would ordinarily be called jobs for women. A big 90mm anti-aircraft gun is a powerful, noisy, heavy gun. Working with it is hard, strenuous work. By pre-war standards, these jobs are work for men only. But these ideas and phrases are peacetime ideas, outmoded by the rush of an entire nation to arms. Women at war, slowly learning mastery over involved and technical phases of their work, setting up and firing the intricate guns, trial elevation shooting through complicated forward area sights, determining range errors on each gun, recording highly mathematical ballistic data for the ordnance officers to study. Complicated masculine work, taken over by the women. Until now, these guns and tanks have been man's domain alone. Until now, that is. But in ever-increasing numbers, in a nation slowly knitting itself into one gigantic army, stretching from the home in one unbroken line out to the fields of battle, now we're learning that women can take over where the men left off. Now, in time of war, each woman and a man's job means one more fighter at the front to shoot the better guns, to drive the improved tanks developed by Aberdeen's endless testing. And so in doing thus, these sturdy women are doing double service, women at Aberdeen, women at war. In modern warfare, armies must be fast-moving, far-reaching, quick. There are many units geared to meet the demands of instant mobility. And so the Quartermaster Corps of our Army has put into the field this unusual unit, important to the fighting strength of every soldier in our Army. It makes bread. It's a bakery. Like the fighters at the front, the soldiers of this mobile bakery unit have their own sort of weapon, too. Their mixers, ovens, bins. Their job in our Army's drive toward victory. For bread is one of the essentials of our fighting men. That bread, like the men who eat it, must be the very best. And so into Uncle Sam's bread go only the finest ingredients, selected carefully in the markets, transported quickly, and always measured exactly according to tested formulas. The flour is the finest flour made, enriched flour, into which have been added the vitamins and minerals which 40% of our civilian population get. Refined sugar, the finest salt, the best yeast, only top-notch ingredients for our fighters. Carefully weighed and measured, each ingredient goes into the big barrel mixer one at a time. Salt, sugar, the yeast, shortening smooth and creamy, and water, carefully purified and tested. The beginnings of bread. Doesn't look much like bread yet, but in 24 hours, the 4 soldier bakers of this mobile bakery will have turned out 4,000 pounds of rich, nutritious bread. 4,000 pounds of bread for fighting soldiers, hungry soldiers. The barrel mixer busily churns the ingredients together, mixing, until the flour and water and shortening and yeast have been churned and beaten into smooth, creamy dough. The first step in the business of baking bread for our Army in the making. That's potential strength for our fighting forces, that dough. Potential ammunition. The quartermaster's part of the fight. Dough for doughboys, ready to be weighed and cut into loaf sizes before baking. And like every other step in the process, The measuring is specific and exact. Each piece of dough is carefully scaled, assuring perfect uniformity. Skilled hands, rapidly and quickly and efficiently cutting the loaves for mess kitchens of an entire division. From these small chunks of dough will come full golden brown loaves, swelled up above the top of the pan. The yeast does that, but instead of letting the yeast work slowly by itself, the doughy loaves are put into the big proofing box, where a steady low heat sets the yeast to work quickly. And in a short while, the tiny yeast cells have multiplied 1,000,000 times, producing those big, full loaves ready for the baking oven. Into the oven with them, and as they go in, finished baked loaves come out, making place for the new. An endless procession of bread for our soldiers. Dough turning slowly into soft, fine-textured bread. The big oven turns out 4 golden brown loaves every 15 seconds, 16 a minute, 960 an hour, 22,000 in a day. Slowly they revolve in the prescribed heat of the oven, an ever-moving Ferris wheel apparatus which makes possible more loaves, more bread, more rich nourishment for the soldiers fighting somewhere, perhaps nearby. Quartermaster ammunition for the fight. And when the loaves have been thoroughly browned, they must be allowed to cool before distribution to the troops. And so, one batch after another, they're placed on racks, cooling in the open air, waiting to be sent to the soldiers on the battle line. Bread, eaten and forgotten in a hurry, but like so much else in our Army in the making, inconspicuous testimony to the care and patience of the men behind the front who provide those soldiers with the best and most efficient supplies and ammunition possibly available. Bread, packed in boxes, one for each kitchen unit, enough to supply an entire Army division for one meal. And yet, the work of just 4 men, and the efficiency of the Mobile bakery. Bread, delivered to the soldiers fresh and soft and tasty. Another quartermaster contribution to our Army in the making.